Welcome to Calvin, the Digital Creative School. Yo, what's up? What's up, everyone? I just realized that the stream doesn't have the chat built in. Wait, let me see if I can just enable and disable it, and then it will work. No, okay, I guess no chat on the video itself.
ICEPC 711 said, "Oh, okay, sound good."
That's Ice. He's one of my new students, and he has something to send in later after we went through the basics of shader and shading and creating procedural shaders and working with textures and stuff. We're gonna look at Ice's submission. But first, I want to show you all the basics of creating cool shaders in Blender, because there's a lot of knowledge around it. But yeah, I just want to show you the basics so you can understand kind of like the different nodes and how you combine all of them together and what's the best way to do all of it. So let me switch over to my desktop. Yo, Winter Deck and Wrench, nice that you guys are also here. All right, so here we have my setup here. This is a little project file that I've just prepared for today with a lot of like shaders already pasted in, just to be able to like quickly go through them. But yeah, your Blender startup file should look something similar like this, maybe without these objects, but that doesn't matter so much. So first of all, this is not a Blender beginner course in general, right? So I'm just kind of like expecting that you guys know how to use Blender and the interface already. So let's just switch over to the shading tab here, because here we have a little bit of a setup already to make shading work. We have the material view, so we can see all the materials, the shaders, and we have our shader editor down here. And usually this is like a little shader that I already built, but let me just add a new object, like a cube here. Actually, let me add a new one. So we have like different surfaces. Let's do like a sphere. All right, just as an example. Witty, what's up? Welcome to the stream, Witty. Have I seen you in the live streams? I'm not sure. But yeah, let us start. So let me look at my notes here. Shading workspace. Yes, that's where we are. All right. So there are, as far as I know, two different ways to create a new material. One way is here on the properties panel in the material tab. You can just click on new if the object doesn't already have a material, and it will create like a standard material with a principled BSDF shader. Let me actually hide this a little bit so we can reveal that information later, because I want to show you a little bit what you can already do in here. Because if you just want like some basic shader stuff, you can actually do already a lot in this window here. Let me show you some examples. So this principled BSDF is like a very universal, like kind of like an ultra shader thing that you can use for a lot of different things, for a lot of different looks and shaders. You have the color here, obviously, you can change the color. And with these sliders here, you can really change how this shader looks, like what kind of material it appears to be, right? You can make it like very metallic, you can make it like a rough metal, or you can make it like super diffused, right? Like super soft. The IOR kind of like changes how I believe it is how reflective the edges of the surface are, or is, yeah. So that's the IOR. And then you have a bunch of like sub menus here for additional settings. They just let you dial in a lot of things. I don't see anything happening with the roughness here, but that's okay. We have subsurface, which is also really cool. I think we should be able to see it with, let's see, do we see the subsurface here? Okay, we don't see it in material view, but let's switch to render view, which uses cycles, and then we can actually see some subsurface, I think. Or can we? Ah, here we go. If the material is white, then we can really see how wait, we can't. Okay. Forget everything that I said. The subsurface usually works, but it seems to be like a very, very subtle effect right now. Oh, here we go. It's because of the scale. Okay, so the subsurface kind of like emulates how light passes through skin and stuff like that. That's why this is also usually turning red while it's passing through. So yeah, you can add some subsurface easily. You can add specular, which just adds more kind of like reflections to the object. Transmission is kind of like transparency, but honestly, it feels like a mix of subsurface and transparency. Like it's not translucid, right? Like you can't see through it, but kind of like diffuses the light that comes through it. So it's a very nice look. If you want to go for something like this, it looks very nice. Then you have code, which like adds a little bit of a layer of reflection to the object. I really like to add just a tiny bit of code usually because it gives the object a little bit of more realism, in my opinion. Yeah, it just gives it another level of reflections, which helps to make things look a little bit more realistic. Sheen is something similar. I honestly don't fully know the difference between code and sheen. Like you can see it adds more reflections again, like kind of like up there. You can see it adds a bunch of like highlights. So yeah, I'm not super sure what it does, but again, it adds some sort of additional reflection layer. But I usually don't really use it. And the emission is the classic, just a lighting object, right? Like you can make objects behave as light sources, and that's what emission is for. You can also make it as a color, so it can emit different colors, which is really cool. And thin film is, as far as I understand, kind of like the effect that you have with car paint jobs, for example. It's also very subtle, but it does help to give your objects a more realistic look. Yeah, but it's very subtle. It's usually not that often that you use it. Okay, a little bit more things you can do in this menu here already. For example, if I don't want just a solid color here, you can actually click on this little yellow ball and choose a procedural texture or even a texture image. For example, I'm going to use the checker texture, and then it uses the checker texture as the color. You also have access to the checkerboard colors right here. Yeah, and that's how you quickly add textures in this panel. So Blender lets you already like configure your shader without really going into any node systems or anything like that. But it is kind of limited, right? So if you want to build more complex things, you kind of have to go into the nodes. But just for fun, let's actually add a shader, a procedural texture to this metallic input also. For that, let's use... I also want to use a procedural texture. Where are they? Texture, yes. Let's use a noise texture. And then you can see we kind of like have a little bit more detail in the metallic. Like it's not super obvious. And that's actually what we're going to do in the shader editor to make this a little bit more obvious, because in here, you don't really have the option to make it stronger or weaker, or like kind of like control the fall off and the curve of this controller here. So I guess this is a good point to switch over to the node editor. Ba-da-ba-bum, here we go. This is the node editor. And you can see, basically, by clicking all these buttons here, Blender automatically created these nodes for us, right? Like it added this checker texture into the color and added this noise texture into the metallic. Yeah, and let's just start with... Oh yeah, something that I want to talk... Okay, I'm going to go one point after the other. And the first thing is I want to tell you guys that you should enable...
ICEPC 711 said, for emission, if I want to make a color LED light, do you have any suggestion for that?
Yeah, to make a colored LED light, I mean, that would usually just be kind of like removing these inputs here and just turning the emission to red and turning that up. Usually you could also make it metallic, so it kind of like reflects it back, so it kind of looks like it's inside of a container of some sort. But yeah, this is, I guess, like a very simple way to make like a little light LED. That's what you meant, right? It's just this, yeah, this option here, emission. All right, so what I wanted to tell you guys is that you should go into the preferences here and in add-ons, enable the node wrangler here, this thing. You should already have it installed. I'm pretty sure it comes with Blender. So just click on it and then it will be enabled. And for anyone else who has questions, I'm going to go...
ICEPC711 said, yes.
Yes. Nice. Awesome. I'm going to go through your questions after I'm done with the basics. So after the basics, we can go into any kind of like detail or in-depth stuff that you guys want to learn about. Oh, but first we're going to look at ICE's submission. After the basics, and after that, we can go into any topics you want to talk about. So, okay, we have Node Wrangler enabled.
My stream a bit delay, so I moved to YT.
All right, let's do that. Okay, I'm going to delete our little LED point here. And I am going to go through the shader nodes. So, I'm going to go back to material view here. And I basically have this little shader that I already built called node examples set up with all the different nodes that you could possibly... It's not all the nodes, but it's the most important nodes that I want to go through with you guys today. So basically, every shader has a material output, right? And it has a surface input, a volume input, displacement input, and thickness. And I don't want to get too much into volume and displacement today, but the surface one is definitely the most important, which is just, yeah, I guess the surface of every object. So that's what you're mostly going to use. Shader nodes. Okay, so I want to show you all the different shader nodes here. How you add new nodes is actually through this little add button here. And then you have all the shader nodes here and all the texture nodes here and a bunch of other things that we might go into detail later. But yeah, I'm going to focus on the shader and texture nodes first. Okay, so I enabled Node Wrangler because it has a lot of like useful key bindings that make you work with nodes much quicker. For example, I can just hold down Control and Shift, and then I can click on any node and it will connect automatically to the material output. So that way, no matter where you are in your node tree, you can quickly check and see what that node or your tree up to that point is doing. So yeah, that's a very handy trick to just like see what's actually happening. All right, let me explain you a little bit about the different shader nodes. The principled, we already went through a little bit. It's basically like your all-inclusive shader that can replicate almost any look. And then we have the diffuse shader, which is a very, very simple shader. It's just color and roughness. If you're going for a stylistic look, this shader might be useful, but for realism, it's not so useful. For realism, I would stick with principled. Then you have the emission shader, which is a very simple shader. It just makes your object emissive. You can change the color, of course. So yeah, sometimes useful to have a simple shader like this. Then we have transparent, which is just transparency. You can have it also be a color, which I'm not sure what... Okay, with cycles, it actually does make a difference. So yeah, it kind of like colors the light that passes through it. So yeah, also a pretty simple shader. I'm not super sure what I would use it for, but yeah, it's nice to have. Then we have the glass BSDF, which is, I guess the go-to if you want to make glass, because it kind of like handles a lot of things that you would want with glass automatically. So for example, the IOR, the index of reflection, you can change here on like yeah, changing how reflective or how refractive the glass is. And then we have the roughness to make it like a kind of like frosted glass look. Oh, it also has a thin film. But yeah, I'm not super sure about thin film. Actually, let's show you something how to learn stuff, because I myself, I don't know everything about these nodes, but if you want to learn everything about a node, you can just do a right click or W on a node and then click on Online Manual. And that will just pull up a website on the Blender manual where you can get a lot of in-depth information about that node. So if you are at any point unsure what a node does, just do this and read up on it, and it will help you a lot, I'm pretty sure. All right, then we have the glossy node, which is like usually for metallic stuff. Yeah, nothing too special about it. Yeah, so usually just like metallic objects. Then we have the translucent, which is kind of like what we already had in the principled BSDF. I mean, maybe you noticed that a lot of these features that we have with these nodes is kind of like built in with the principled BSDF. So you usually don't need these other nodes, but it's good to know that they exist. So in case you want to have like something very specific or less photorealistic, you can use these individual nodes. Then we have hair BSDF, which is not made for solid objects at all. As you can see, like this kind of like totally breaks it. It's usually just used with hair objects. But I don't want to get into detail with that because that's a whole other thing. Then we have holdout, which is just kind of like cutting out the pixels where that object is. So this is useful if you are combining live action footage with 3D renders, because if you use this holdout shader, the objects would basically be like a alpha mask. So this part here would be transparent. Yeah, and I think it's only used for real live action footage composition. Then we have Toon BSDF, which kind of like helps you to create a more cartoonish look. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it. Like, oh, what the hell? Oh, that's new. I have not seen that before. It kind of like just projects. It just projects the surf. Oh, wow. Yeah, it's kind of just like projecting onto the surface here. I didn't know it did that. That's very interesting. So I guess this is really for not photorealistic renders, because yeah, it doesn't change depending on the angle. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so I guess if you want to go for more cartoonish 2D style, use the Toon shader, the Toon BSDF. Very interesting. Next, we have the metallic BSDF, which is, yeah, again, very similar to the principled BSDF, but focused on just the metallic aspects of it. And then we have another hair shader. Yeah, I don't want to talk too much about that again. Then we have the refraction shader, which is almost like the glass shader, but only showing the rays that are behind the object, that are being like cast through the object, so it doesn't have any reflections. So this is also like very specific, like you want to use this for specific use cases. We have the ray portal BSDF, which is a new addition to Blender, and it's actually a really, really complex but powerful node. But yeah, it's too complex to talk about right now. And we have the sheen BSDF, which looks pretty nice. Yeah, I guess it's just the sheen look that you get by itself. So usually I would use this shader like in combination with others. I'm not sure like how useful it is on its own, but it does look pretty cool. And then we have the subsurface scattering, which is again kind of like the skin shader. So you can like see how this cube here gets like this subsurface scattering. The light is passing through it. And again, with the scale, we can change how far the light is passing through the object. Honestly, it looks super cool. Looks very delicious, very soft. Yeah, very nice. Yeah, so these are the basic shaders that you can use and combine however you want to. Talking about combining, maybe this is a good point or like a good moment to talk about it, because I showed you for example, this refraction shader, it only has the refracting rays, right? But we could, for example, use this shader and the glossy shader, which only has the reflections. And then let's use a mixed shader. So for example, I'm just going to plug this mixed shader in between here, and then the refraction shader down here. And now it's mixing these two shaders together. So we have the glossiness and we have the refraction. And here with this factor, we can choose how much of each we want. So yeah, this is how you can build your own, but like very own type of shaders from scratch with these building blocks. Yeah, just a little example on how to use a mix shader. The mix shader is also just here in shader, mix shader, and add shader. While I'm here, I guess I'll show you also the add shader, because the add shader, instead of mixing the two results, it adds them on top of each other. So that means bright points will get brighter. Oh yeah, I guess that's all it is. Like it's just getting brighter. So usually you don't want to use the add shader too much, because that can like lead to very like way too bright materials where like if you're going for realism, it doesn't really make sense. But yeah, when you're going for not realism, you can as always just do what you want. Bigbo, thanks for loving the League of Legends projects and behind the scenes. So yeah, it's a lot of fun to work on those. Okay, let us undo these changes, just so I have everything organized again in a list. Like that. Okay. Also, I'm going to show you another shortcut from Node Wrangler. So if I want to disconnect this link here, I could either unplug this, or I can use Control right click, and then you get like this kind of like knife tool, and anything that's being like that's in between this line will get cut, which is also really cool. So I can just like boop, cut this line, boop, cut this line. Also for multiple objects, it could work, or like multiple connections, it can work like this. So I can just like cut all these lines. Yeah, very useful. Very useful Node Wrangler stuff. All right, what do I have on my list here? Texture nodes. All right, let's get into the texture nodes, because these are how you get texture into your objects. So let's go through all of them again with Control Shift left click. So this is the brick texture. It kind of just like generates a brick pattern, and you have a lot of settings here that you can play around with to make the bricks look exactly how you want to. Frequency. So yeah, I'm not gonna play around with all of this, but that's what it does. There's checker texture, which just gives you like a checkerboard grid. You can change the scale and the colors. IES texture is something not used with objects. It's something for light sources. Let me just show you real quick. This is probably a bit... Oh, I can zoom into my screen, right? With Linux? Yes, very nice. So IES textures are files that make lights work more realistically with like realistic fall-offs. I'm also not going to get into much detail on that right now, but just if you want realistic lighting, realistic point lights and spotlights, look up IES lighting and IES textures for Blender. Maybe I'll show you later. Let's see. Then we have this node here, which originally was, because it got the name of the texture that from the texture that I loaded, but the original name is environment texture. And the environment texture is not really used for objects. It's used for the environment, for the world, because you can see it projects environment textures outwards from the center of the world. So you basically have, I guess it works like a skybox. Like if you ever worked on like game engines, this kind of works like a skybox where you just see the sky through it. Yeah. Then we have a gradient texture, which is super useful. It just generates a color gradient from one bound of the object to the other, from one side to the other side of the object. And it also has a few different versions. So it has like quadratic, it has easing, it has spherical, which is also often very useful because it creates a spherical gradient. obviously. Radial, quadratic sphere. Yeah, so all of these things, very useful texture for all kinds of things. Gabor texture. This is a new texture, and it kind of like looks a little bit like sand, right? Like, yeah, like a sand texture. It's pretty cool. I like it, but I haven't used it much yet. Then we have the classic just texture. So if you go into texture here, and then what was it? Image texture. Yeah, so that's this. It just loads in an image, and then you can use that image as a texture. Then we have Voronoi, which creates these like almost like cell looks. These are very useful for organic kind of stuff, like organic kind of like materials. Yeah, you can make a lot of different things here. And they also have like different versions. So all these versions here, they have like different looks and different math behind them. So yeah, definitely try out all of these things here. It's very interesting. And then we have noise texture, which gets used a lot because very often you just need some noise in your material to make it look more realistic or to add some interesting detail. So yeah, just play around with this. It's very often used. And then we have sky texture, which is also, again, not used with objects usually, but with the world, because this kind of just creates like a HDRI, like an environment where you can control the sun position and yeah, stuff like that. But yeah, for an object, it's not really useful. Then we have the wave texture. Yeah, also pretty cool. You can make like wood stuff with this. And then we have the white noise texture, which is not really visible because it's literally every pixel has a different value. So it just looks like gray right now, but it actually is just like random black or white or in between pixels. I'm not super sure what this is useful for because it is very similar to the noise texture if you scale it up really high. Maybe anyone has an idea what this is good for. All right, so these were the textures that you can use in Blender. Let me see what I have next here. Oh yes, okay, something very important. Let me use the gradient texture as an example for that. So you might ask yourself, how do I move textures around, right? Like if I have this concrete here, if I have this gradient here, how do I actually control where on the object it is? And that's where the texture coordinate and the mapping node is coming in. These let you control the position of your textures. Because you notice like every texture has this blue input, which says vector. And the vector is basically just a position information, right? It's got 3 informations. Here's also a vector. It's X, Y, and Z. It's not necessarily X, Y, and Z, but usually in 3D software, it's X, Y, and Z, which is the coordinates in the 3D system. So for example, let us just plug generated into this gradient. And you can see nothing happened because actually generated is the standard information. So when you don't have anything connected to the vector, it's already using generated basically. And generated, I am actually not exactly sure how it works, but it kind of like just wait, where is it? My texture. It kind of just makes this. Okay, no. Yeah, no, actually, I'm not super sure what generated does because I don't use it that much, but it is the standard, I think. Sorry for the confusion, guys, but let's continue with the next one, which is normal. Normal kind of like, yeah, maps your texture along the normals of your object. Maybe that's a bit more obvious here with the monkey. So you can see kind of like the normals of the object, which is again like another topic. I don't want to get too much into it, but the normals kind of just tell you in which direction the faces of the mesh look, right? So you have faces that look in this direction, faces that look in that direction, and this direction. But it's also, again, not super useful for texturing. Then we have UV, which is very useful for texturing because almost every object has a UV map, which is the object unfolded in a 2D space, which we can quickly check out here with UV editing. Let me actually do that with the monkey. So you can see this is the UV map of the monkey. And if we go back into our shading and use the concrete texture with UV mapping, it basically uses that map to put the texture on top. Maybe we can actually show that in the UV editor here. Yeah. So you can already see now that this monkey has like all these UV islands, and the texture you can see here is basically mapped on that, right? So if I want a different part of the texture, for example, like the head of the monkey, if I move this around, you can see how the texture is shifting on the monkey. If I just move the eyes here, only that part is changing. So yeah, that's how you could, if you just have one texture, that's how you could control what part of the texture is visible where on the object. All right, let me show you another cool node wrangler trick, because right now, like to demonstrate you guys a bit quicker on how all these shaders and all these like texture coordinates worked, I can just with Shift right click draw another line through these, and that just combines them into one little point, one little reroute point. And now another very cool node wrangler trick. If I hold down Alt and right click near this node, I can just like drag to the next node and will automatically connect the most logical connection. So it will connect the blue into the blue. So I can just quickly go through all these nodes and connect the mapping to all of them. Oh, that wasn't the right one. To all of them that have one like these. Yeah, and the cool thing now is that I can change the mapping mode from all of the nodes just by reconnecting this one. And now all of the nodes use object mapping. I hope that makes sense for you guys. It's a very, very powerful, cool feature. Let me go with gradient texture for now, because you can see that using the object texture coordinate puts the gradient into the center, like it starts at the center of the object now. If we use anything else like generated, it starts on the left side. But if we use object, it basically uses the origin point of the object. And if in the gradient texture we then use spherical, it makes the gradient basically grow from the inside out. So it's kind of like looks like it's glowing from the inside, which is also kind of cool. All right, let's continue with the last remaining texture coordinates here. The next one is camera, which basically just projects the texture from your view angle. It's kind of trippy. I'm not super sure what it's useful for again, but it is pretty cool. Then we have window, which is the same thing, but even more consistent. So yeah, wait, camera, and let me quickly check camera. Okay, now it is still kind of warping. So I guess window really makes it super flat. And camera still has like some perspective to it. Yeah. Okay, and then last but not least, we have reflection, which kind of like acts like a, yeah, I mean, it looks like a reflection, right? So you can use this mapping if you want to have like a specific texture reflected on your object or something like that. Okay, now let's go back to object here and the gradient texture, because now I want to show you the mapping node. So if we put the mapping node in between the texture coordinates and the textures right here, we have all these options here, which is location. We can change the location of our gradient. We can change the rotation, which is not visible with the spherical, and we can change the scale. I have little flies in my room right now. I think it's because of the plants. There's some flies in the plants. But yeah, we can control all of this here. A little tip inside of Blender, you can click and drag on multiple values up and down, and then to left and right to like scale them all at once. But honestly, if you have a socket like this for scale, if you want to control all of it at the same time, I usually just take this out, and then if you let go, it will let you add another node, and I look for value. And that way we only have like one value to control all the XYZ information. That way it's much easier to scale. It's not so clunky anymore. Yeah. So yeah, this is the mapping node. It's very useful. It's very cool. Okay, what should we do next? Normal mapping, normal map. Okay, yeah, let's get into normal maps, because you can see some of these shaders have normal inputs. Most of them actually have that. So let's activate this and make it a little bit less rough and a bit more metallic, because then it's going to be a bit more obvious. And normal, the normal inputs are basically kind of like surface imperfections, or like dents, kind of like as if you had more geometry, right? Like as if you had like a rough grass ground or something, or like holes in your object, but it's all fake. It's all simulated. So that's what you use the normals for. Let's pick one of these. I'm going to use object again, but I'm going to skip all of this for now. Let's pick one of these shaders here to use as a normal map. Gabor. Maybe actually just the noise texture. Yeah, let's just use the noise as a normal map. So you need this shader here, normal map, for you to be able to use information and convert it into a normal map, because you can see that all these inputs and outputs have specific colors. So for example, if I connected my noise texture into the normal map directly, it will still use it. Blender doesn't tell you what you can and can't do, but it doesn't work correctly, because it's not kind of like the information it gets isn't really useful for this node. So let's connect our color output into the color input of the normal map, and then that normal into this normal here. And then you can see we have like crazy surface detail now. This looks insane. So let's actually pull down the strength a little bit. And now it just looks like it's like some warped metal. It actually looks much more realistic. Yeah, so this is how you get like really cool detail on your shader without much work. And then we can always go back to the noise texture and like change the look of it, or like how warped it is. Yeah, very cool. We can also use all kinds of other things. For example, the Gabor isn't connected yet. Let's use the Gabor here in the color. And then we have kind of like a water surface look. Yeah, that's interesting. Oh, you know what? If we have this, I want to show you. Oh, we don't have that. Orientation, frequency, scale. Oh, I wanted to animate this. Let's actually switch to 3D. No, that doesn't work. Okay, let's quickly do that, because it looks very cool to me. So I'm gonna use the mapping node again, but I'm gonna reset everything here. And then if we move this, it doesn't change. Okay, I thought we could like change the seed of the Gabor somehow, but it doesn't seem like we can do that. Okay, let's skip that for now then. All right, yeah, so that's how you use a normal map, and yeah, you plug those into the normal inputs of your shader, and then it just looks like it's more 3D. Very cool stuff. Let's see, what do I have next here? Multiple objects using the same shader. Okay, this is also something interesting in Blender. You can have a lot of objects using the same shader, right? For example, if I add another object here, let's add the sphere back in, make it flat again, and then here in the material panel, but also here in the shader editor, you can pick whatever material you already have in the scene, and then that object will have the same material. And when you change it in here, it will apply to all the objects that have that material. And you can actually see that 3 objects have this material right now, like this little 3 next to the name, it means, yeah, how many users does this material have? So if I select the ball here and I click on the 3, it becomes its own material. It doesn't have a 3 anymore because this is now the only object using that shader. So if I change it, only this object is getting changed. So yeah, that's how you make variations of your shaders. Another important thing to know is that, for example, you see some of these materials have an F in front of them. And the F is this little shield icon here. If I activate this shield, this one also has an F. You see? And that basically means, because Blender automatically cleans up the data inside of their project files. So if I remove this shader from this object, so now this shader isn't getting used on any object. If I go into my shader list, you can see there's a 0 in front of it. And that means 0 objects use this shader. And that means that Blender will delete this shader after you save and reload the project file, because Blender wants to automatically clean up some space. So you got to be aware of that. If you want to keep a shader always, you have to click on the shield icon. That's it's a bit strange, but I still like it. I still like it that Blender kind of like helps you to clean up your project files automatically. All right. What? Oops, not the floor. I wanted to have this one. Yes. Okay, what do I have next? Material settings. Yeah. Okay. So there are some settings that you can change for materials that are important sometimes. So for example, let me just quickly add a new plane here. And I will make this one. Let's just quickly create a new material here. And I will create for alpha, for example. I want to use a noise texture. So now I basically, where this noise texture is black, it will be transparent, and where it's white, it will be not transparent. While I'm here, I'm also going to show you how you can increase this effect a little bit. By pressing Shift A, you get this little add menu, and then I click on search, and I look for ramp, color ramp. And then you can just like drop this in between these nodes, and then we can clamp the colors. So that means things get more opaque or things get more transparent. So now we have like very transparent parts and we have very opaque parts. Okay, now let's get back to the settings, what I wanted to show you. So let's click all of this down. So you have these settings here in your material properties. And there are some important things here that I usually... Okay, I'm going to go through it one by one. So surface displacement bump only means that what we've done earlier here with the normal, that is basically the bump. The normal from your shader is called bump displacement. And if I use displacement only, it uses usually, if there's something in this displacement output, it will use only that. And if we use displacement and bump, it will use both, like the normal and the displacement. But usually you want to choose one of these because displacement and bump is not realistic. Like it's not how it really works. you should, if you're going for photorealism again, of course, you should use either displacement or bump. And the difference is, as I said, bump is only simulated depth, and displacement is real displacement of the geometry, but it's very, it's a different workflow. I'll need to show you that another time. So let's just stick with bump only for now. Emission sampling, I'm not super sure, I never really changed this. But what is important, wait, am I in cycles? Yes. Okay, I guess it's not available in cycles, but for the viewport, I want to show you this because it's kind of nice to know for if you're rendering in Eevee or if you want a cleaner viewport. If we switch render engine to Eevee and then back to the settings here, we have a bunch of more options. But what I want to focus on right now is the render method. Dithered is this kind of like noisy look that you get when you move the camera, and it's kind of like sampling basically. But if you change this to blended, then it's not noisy. Wait, it is noisy. Transparent overlap. Wait, did they change this? Blended. Oh, did that. Huh. Okay, I guess this works a bit different now. So don't mind that. Okay, yeah, so I guess we can skip that for now. The settings, yeah, I think the other settings were not so important. Multiple importance, yeah, all of this stuff is more advanced. We don't really need to go into that right now. All right, so settings, yep. Viewport. Okay, one of the last things I want to tell you guys about is viewpoint display settings. So that's also here in the shader settings. And this lets you change a few things. Wait, is this what I meant? Okay, wait. So viewport display, it's not settings, but it's viewport, and then rendered blended. This is what I meant. Oh, okay. It was in viewport display, not in settings. All right, so now you can actually see that this transparency isn't noisy anymore. It's very clear, like very clean, but it also comes with its downsides, which are very specific, like case-to-case situations. So that's why it's usually in dithered, because dithered works with everything. It's a bit more noisy, but it always works. And blended is not noisy, but it doesn't always work. So usually go with dithered, but if you want like a very clean, transparent look in your viewport, then you can change it to blended. Yes, that's what I meant. And also, if you're not in the material view, on the render view, in the object mode, the solid view, you can change the color of your solid object here in the viewport display. So yeah, this is kind of just like a way to differentiate your objects a little bit, even in your solid viewpoint. Yeah, to just make them metallic if they are also metallic in the render view. It's not like that useful. I don't usually use it, but it is nice to know that you can do this. Yes, that is the most important thing here. Okay, and then as a little last bonus, I want to show you guys the volume shaders. Because volume shaders are very heavy to calculate, like it takes a lot of time to render them, but they do look very nice. So I want to just show you a few basics about them. So let's go back here in our node examples, and down here we have our volume shaders. So we have the principled volume, which is again like a all-in-one kind of like solution. Wait. Okay. So volumes automatically connect to the volume output, because you can have both at the same time. You can have like for example, let's imagine like a glass bottle full of smoke. So you can have your glass here. Wait, let's just do that, I guess. Glass. Glass. Let's go into cycles render. Yes, no roughness. So it's fully see-through. So yeah, now it has a volume and a surface at the same time, but the volume isn't so visible. So let's put up the density. Yeah, I mean, I think it's better if we do it just the volume, because otherwise it's a bit hard to see. Okay, so now you can very clearly see that these are volumes and the light is passing through it. Other objects are casting shadows on the volume, or like blocking the light from going through the volume. It's all very cool. It's all very, very nice. Yeah, and again with like the surface shader, the principled volume gives you almost all the options you want for volumetric rendering. You have emission, you have the density, you can change the color here, the temperature, but I think for the temperature you actually need some kind of information from like a fluid simulation or something like that. Yeah. We have the volume coefficient, which is based on real measurements. So this only really works if you have like real world measurements of volumes, and then you can put these measurements into these values here. Then we have volume absorption, which is a very, very simple volume shader. It kind of just like absorbs light. It doesn't really do much more than that, I think. Then volume scatter is also the most simple version of a volume shader. It kind of just like absorbs light, but instead of removing light from the scene completely, it diffuses it. It like how volumes work, right? Like it puts the light in a different direction. If that's how you want to call it. I want to tell you a little bit about anisotropy because it is a very cool setting that I use a lot because it kind of like lets you change how the light passes through the volume. So if a light enters the volume, you can change the chance of it like going further straight or if it's going actually backwards. So if we go into this direction and we change the anisotropy, you can actually see that it gets like super bright if I turn this value up. But if I look from the side, it gets dark. So yeah, it's a very interesting look. So this basically means the light passes through it mostly straight and not much to the sides. And if I reverse this, it's the same. So you can't really look through it, but from the sides, it's pretty transparent. Yeah. Anisotropy is lifesaver for us. Yeah, honestly, I use it a lot actually with the high anisotropy because it looks very nice in backlit scenes. If you have a sun behind the main character, you get these like super clear God rays. So that's why I like to use it usually. Those were the very, very basics of nodes, of shader nodes. I kind of like showed you all the most important building blocks to start building your own shaders. And now I would quickly go into helping Ice with his shader. And then I would be open for you guys to ask any more advanced or more complex topics if we don't already go into those with Ice's submission. Hey, what are we doing? Hey, Tessace? We're doing a little workshop on the Blender shader nodes basics. Okay, let me check if I can download Ice's project file here now. Yes, all right. Okay, it's downloading right now. It's done downloading. Let me drop that in here and open it. Don't save that. Are you recording video? Yes, all of this is getting recorded and uploaded to YouTube afterwards. So you can rewatch it if you like. Okay, Ice, I see a project file here now. I know we watched this already, but I would like to know what exactly it is that you are missing here that you would like to change. Okay, see in your Discord submission you say, hello, I need help with how to make the LED light in the text. All right. Sadly, I don't have the font for this text. So I'm just going to use a font that I have installed on my PC. Canava. Bold. Okay, this is a very ugly font, but I think it's enough for just like working on the project. Oops. Esports. Yeah, it looks very generic with this font. Just imagine it looking super sick. EMU. Esports. Blender font. Okay, now we have all the fonts here, or at least the text. Tessa says, League of Legends video was crazy, 10 out of 10 video. Thanks, man. I'm very happy so many people enjoyed it. Okay, LED light in the text. So if I remember correctly, let's just go into the render view here. Okay, so you are using Eevee. Are you planning on using Eevee also for the final render? Because it kind of like changes on how shaders can look like. Okay, let's...
ICEPC711 said, yes.
Okay, so you're using Eevee. That's fine, that's cool. You can make really cool stuff with Eevee. EMU. Okay, so what exactly do you want this to look like? Because I can see you already have it emissive, and then it's like fading out with the alpha animated here. So yeah, what would you like to change? What is it that you're looking for?
Oh, we was going to do in the cycle, my bad.
Oh, you want to... Okay, so we're going to switch to cycles. Here we go. GPU compute to make it much faster. Do I have my GPU enabled? Yes. I think it's loading the shaders right now. This might take like a little moment. I also usually like to close these like texture and UV coordinate windows because I don't use them that much. So it's a little bit more space for the shader and the viewport. Just gonna save it already while we wait. Yeah, loading render kernels. This may take a few minutes for the first time. All right, so I guess in that time, Ice, you can explain what you want to do. Yeah. Maybe you can like show me, like send like a reference image.
ICEPC711 said, I want to look it more like a real LED text right now. It just feel like a text without lighting.
Okay, I see what you mean. Like it looks very flat, right? It's just this one color. I have a few ideas how to make it look more three-dimensional. I'm going to show that to you in a moment when this render kernel has loaded. Desktop, yeah, there we go. We're still waiting for the render kernel, but it should be done any moment. Damn, I have so many like these little fruit flies from the... I think they're living in one of my plants. I have a lot of plants in my room, so I need to get rid of them somehow. Let me play some soundboard effects while we wait for this to compile, because on the Discord server we have some fun soundboards that I featured it. Here, this one, for example.
This is Calva School. Blender God mode.
So epic. Oh, this is actually a song that I featured and I were working on.
I actually ran over this.
Oh my god, bro.
Oh, hell no, man.
Oh my god. Wow. Yeah, why is Blender taking so long to load the kernels? And why for this project file? That is a bit mysterious, but if I know Blender, it should be done any moment now. But I guess there's no way to predict how long it will actually take. Maybe you guys, if you have questions about shader nodes or like how to build a specific shader, just write them in the chat already now, and then I'll get to them as soon as I can. I mean, I can actually run a second Blender instance that already has the kernel compiled because I used it in the other one. Let me just try that if I can just start another one and if that one just works. Let's see. Time to restart Blender. No, that actually doesn't fix it. If the kernel needs to be compiled, you can't really do anything about it. Because it seems like there's something like a shader in your project file that hasn't been compiled on my machine before. But yeah, like for example, in this scene here, I have everything already compiled in the past, so it just opens. But yeah, yours has some new stuff that I didn't compile before. So yeah, if anyone has a question, say it now, because while it's compiling, I can just as well do your question. Ba-da-da-da-da-da. Oh, we have a message here from Tess May got Tachil. So like I'm working on the renders, so like the node approach is better or some other node approach. I mean, in Blender, you don't really have a choice. If you want to create materials, you have to do it through nodes, or you use already created materials. And for that, I can only really recommend with my full heart that you can use Blender Kit, which is already installed on my machine here. So you can just like browse through tons of cool materials. You can just drag and drop them onto objects, and then it will have it in a moment, right? Yeah. So if you don't feel comfortable with creating node trees for shaders, you can use something like Blender Kit, but I would definitely recommend you learn node shaders, because it's very powerful, and then you will also always be able to adjust everything to exactly how you need it. For some reason, this is also not really loading for me correctly right now. That's weird, guys. There's a lot of waiting right now. It might be also because of the compiling. Oh, we got an error here. Client failed to start. Oh, but I think that's a Blender Kit error. I don't think that's a render kernel. Yeah, no, I think that's from Blender Kit. Something isn't right with the internet connection. Like the node tree, yes. You can try Substance Painter as its workflow is like similar to Photoshop, like layers for texturing. Ah, true. Yeah. If you want to do texturing and shaders outside of Blender, you can use something like here Substance Painter or Armory Paint. I'm trying to learn like how to stacking. What do you mean with stacking? Okay, Witty, I might. I think I'm gonna take your idea of restarting Blender, because this feels unrealistically long to compile the render kernel. So I'm just gonna save this and do a quit on this Blender instance. I gotta open up my task manager here. Blender quit application. Yes. All right, let's try that again. We open it up again. Okay, let's see. We've got GPU. Okay, let's go again into the render view. Okay, it's doing render kernels again. Hopefully not forever this time. Yeah, I don't think we have any other option. I think we just have to wait for this to finish. Yeah, I'm happy to help you guys with other node-related questions in the meantime, because I don't think there's any way to skip this. I think we just have to wait it out. yeah, I'm just going to open up another instance so where we can work in. And then the other one will work in the background. I'm going to put it on my second screen so I can see when it's done. Here we go. Do 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 do. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna show it to you in another project file, just like the ideas that I had to create a more realistic looking LED. So I'm just gonna get rid of this guy. Actually, I'm just gonna disable him. And let's add our own text object here. Let's say esports. Okay, I'm gonna place this camera right here. Sports. I'm gonna make the environment dark like you had. Just gonna use color. RGB. Where is it? Color. Yeah, color. Make it black. Disable. Remove the light here. And now, I'm gonna add a new shader. Emission. Turn that up. So now it's emitting. Let's make it here in geometry also a bit thick so it has depth. All right. Okay. Yeah. I'll just show you the ideas that I have in here for now. And you can also see, like, on the right here, I have Eevee. I have the material view, and on the left here, I have cycles. I have the ray tracing mode. And it's interesting how Eevee actually can kind of like simulate ray tracing, or can simulate indirect lighting, which is pretty cool. All right, so an idea or something that I usually do with stuff like this is I add a Fresnel input. And if we look at the Fresnel input, it's basically this like outline that we get. And you can put this directly into the strength, and then basically only the outline is glowing, but we need it to be much brighter. So let's add a multiply. That's not what I meant. Multiply math. Yeah, a math multiplication. Then we can increase this here and make it glow much stronger. And that way we already have a little bit more detail. Like, you can see how the front-facing surfaces are less bright and the back-facing surfaces are a bit brighter. And that gives, even though it still emits light, it makes it look more detailed. And we can make this look even better if we give it some depth. Because depth kind of like adds these like rounded corners on the text. Let's offset. Yeah, we can kind of like control the look of the text with this. Yeah, maybe something like this. But yeah, you can already see that this feels much more three-dimensional now, even though it's still glowing. And something that you can also do is give it like a metallic look, so it reflects the environment back at us. It's not so obvious here, but like if you have some environment, it's gonna like add some detail to the object. So yeah, it gives it a little bit more depth. And then obviously what you also really need to make light look like it's glowing is with glow effects. And we can do that directly in Blender with the compositing tool here. Either we can click into the compositor here, but I usually like to stay in my cover workspace and just change this to compositor. I already actually have a glare in here. So let's just go to this drop down and compositor, let's activate always. And then you can see our nice little glow here. Always. Yeah. Let's turn down the threshold here a little bit. Maybe even more. 1. Yeah, that's cool. Let's make the quality a little bit lower so we can actually work. Low. That's too low. Yeah, let's keep it with medium. But yeah, glow like this is very important to make any like light sources look more realistic, especially if we look directly at them. We can make it also like pretty subtle, but like you can see how it immediately feels more three-dimensional and realistic. Let me look at the chat if there's any questions here. Witty says, Calva, recently I found a great way to use emission nodes with better lighting surrounding area and also good looking for accurate colors too. And it's too good. Oh, interesting. Okay, if you have any like cool tips about that, share them with us. It sounds very, very cool. Yeah, we can also change the color and everything just works. Yeah. Yeah, Ice, is this kind of like what you were looking for? I think these are some little things that would help your text to feel more realistic. Other things you could do is also change the color of the text itself with a similar method. Like if we use this Fresnel again, let me actually disable the glow in this viewport so it's a bit faster. We can use the Fresnel because remember again, right? If we just look at it, it's just a black and white image.
ICEPC711 said, "Thank you, this really helped me."
Nice. Okay, cool. That already helped you. Let's add a ramp here, and this ramp basically lets us give this black and white gradient colors. So let's make this blue, and the blacks, let's make those red. Something like this, and then you can see how we have like this gradient here, and we can, with the IOR, we can change the distribution of that gradient. Let's make it like really cartoonish, something like this. And then we can actually put this into the color here, and then we get this, very detailed kind of like shader where it has like multiple colors. I think it looks pretty nice. It looks a bit unrealistic, but it's got like some extra detail to it. Yeah, pretty cool. We can also, again, let's use something we learned earlier with the gradient texture. Let's look how that gradient works. Okay, it's going from left to right, which could look cool. Let's put that into the factor. And then we have, going from red to blue. But that was actually... I mean, this is cool, but... Oh, actually, we can combine these two. Like, we can combine this gradient texture with the Fresnel by using a mix here. Mix A, mix B. And then if we look at both of them, we have like a mix between them. And we can use that again here. And now we have both. We have the gradient from left to the right and also from the front facing and the back facing. Yeah, just some ideas to give your text a little bit more pop, a little bit more life and three-dimensionality. Taz also likes the glare a lot. Yeah, glare is awesome. I love glare and glows. I made my own glow inside of Fusion called Calva Glow. Let me actually put it here in the chat if you guys want to use it, because it's there's a free version of it that's almost like with all the features. There's just like a few little things I kept for my Patreon supporters, but it is very useful. Where did I put it? So this is Calva Glow. Here it is. I made a cool little trailer for it too. I think here you go, guys. Check it. If you're using Fusion to composite or resolve, then you can use that glow too. Okay, guys, I think... Oh wait, there's a question here from Taz. What's that node one with gradient you mixed? With gradient I mixed. With gradient. Oh, Fresnel, you mean? Yeah, Fresnel is this like almost like outline, kind of like shader. Or like not shader, it's more like information. Yeah, and if we mix these, we get both. Bam, bam. Very cool. All right, guys. I think it doesn't seem like you have so many questions today, so I think I'm gonna take a early night today since I just arrived back by plane this morning. I woke up at what was it? Oh yeah, at 4:30 this morning. So I'm awake for quite a while already. So yeah, guys, thank you very much for joining. I hope you all learned a little bit of a new thing today. And I'll keep sending your stuff, keep sending submissions, and I'll work through them with you guys live in the live streams. Check out the Patreon, hey, if you could support me. And look forward to new videos.
ICEPC711 said, "Thank you, Culver. This stream really helped me."
I'm happy to hear that. Oh wait, Abe showed up and said, "Don't end now." Hey, Aba, you got a question or something? What did I want to say? Oh yeah, we are working on a few bigger videos right now, but one of the honestly, I'm really excited about the videos that are coming out soon. Like one is about not a Coca-Cola, but like a local Germany-made cola brand that we're gonna make like a very fun retro TV commercial for, and they allowed me to like create a whole full BTS video around that. So it's gonna be similar like the League of Legends video that I released. And then also me and my creative gang, we participated in a film competition, and we got pretty far. We didn't get nominated for the win, but I actually did get a call today from the organizer that they still want to show our movie at the festival, at the gala, and they invited us to come there. So I'm definitely making a video about that, like the whole process, how we filmed a short film in 99 hours. Now we have a lot of behind the scenes footage, and yeah, I think it's gonna be very fun. Witty says, "I've put the screenshot on Discord server for a missive trick." Okay, let's quickly check out the missive trick. Where is it? Oh, I see, in your F1 personal project here. Okay, let's look at it together. What's happening here? Emission, 2 emissions. Main emission, mix factor camera. Ah, okay, yeah. I actually used this in the past too. So basically what Witty is doing here, he has 2 different emission strengths. Oh, sorry, I'm not showing my screen right now. All right, here we go. So Witty has 2 different emission strengths here. He's got one that's very high and one that's very low. And he's using the light path is camera ray as a mix factor. And that basically means the shader that goes in on the top is considered not a camera ray, and the shader that's on the bottom is considered a camera ray. So that means what he gets is that his main light object is not blown out. It's using the strength 1, but the whole environment is still being lit by an object as if it was strength 20. So yeah, if you want to have your object not being blown out by the camera, you can use this trick. It does break reality. It can feel fake, but also often it helps to like balance your image. You can see it in the
ICEPC711 said, "I'm going back to work. Thank again."
All right, Ice. Have a great day. You can see it actually here in the reflection. Like the reflection is much brighter than the object itself, which doesn't make any sense. But yeah, it's a useful trick. It's very cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, man. Be doing more of those. Abba asks, will you be doing more of those, of these live streams? I just joined. I really like the leak behind the scenes. Yes. I think I just said that we're working on more videos like that right now. And hopefully on another big leak video this year again. I'm usually working with the guys a lot on these kind of projects. So yeah, probably. This helps a lot in doing compositing and post with grading and all for me. Yeah, I believe that. Yeah, it's definitely a very helpful trick to balance out the composition. Yeah, to make things not look too bright. All right, guys. Yeah, I guess that's it for today. I will see you soon again. There's actually another stream already planned for. Let me check. You can always check out carverschool.com. There's like a calendar where I always put in when there is a live stream planned. On Tuesday at 18:30 Berlin time, we're going to look at a jumping animation from a student of mine. And yeah, we're going to help them to make it look premium. From what I've seen, it already looks really cool. But yeah, I will see what ideas I have to make it even cooler. Yeah, so that's the next stream. I hopefully see all you guys over there. Have a great day. Have a great day. Have a great night wherever you are in the world. Bye-bye.